I'm Travis Brown, founder and CEO of Mojo Up Marketing and Media. And this is my podcast, where I talk to the most successful Black and brown business executives who've broken through the barriers of today's business culture. Welcome to Mojo Up Live, the diverse and talented podcast. I'm your host, Travis Brown. Today, I have Kelly Copes Anderson. She's a big baller, a shot caller with a big title, the Global Head of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at the Eli Lilly and Company. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Travis.
You know, when I open up that, and I truly mean this, I say this sometimes, some big ballers, shot callers, game changers, and part of that is that you've arrived now by title, and I say that because you have one of these titles when people look at it and they're like, wow. But you didn't just overnight one day wake up and go, you know, I'm the head of something at Eli Lilly. Talk about, like, how did you get there?
Well, I think it starts with, I'm not sure that I always knew that this was the there, right, that I would be at. So for me, it started with really just a dream of being able to do more than where I was as a little girl in upstate New York. I had parents that were like, education is the gateway to a better future. And so I was a first generation college graduate in my family.
Michigan State, that's it.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Now you're talking. That's the most important part.
Well, I shouldn't have wore that maize and blue today.
Yes. What did you do, Travis?
I gotta go get my green on.
I will have to make sure that next time we've got to have our standards in place.
That's right.
So then went to Michigan State, first in my family to get a college degree. I had a college degree in chemical engineering, and I thought that was the future. I thought that was the end, and it was great. I loved it because I love math and science and things of this nature. But from there, after working for a while in manufacturing, I was like, I just feel like I could do more. I'd like to do more about solving problems that help people. Yeah. And so that people part was really important for me. And that became true throughout my career. So started in manufacturing, then went on to the commercial side to be able to prepare for drugs to launch, be in market, all the way through that, a number of roles in market research, analytics, as well as in marketing. And that's where I spent the predominant time in my career, was in a commercialization of medicine and products and brands. And before the role that I currently have now, was a global brand leader for in oncology for breast cancer medication. That was so rewarding. I thought I was there because from being able to help people, which is really important to me, that was the best. Like how you could just really help people, and in particular, I could help women of color who had a 40% greater chance than other women of dying from breast cancer. So it was very meaningful work. Yeah. And really enjoyed that. But then there was an opportunity that came up to be able to strengthen the company that I work at and actually take that people focus to the colleagues that help create medicines for patients. So that was just also wasn't a dream of mine, but it became a reality of like, wow, this is something great that I can do and help our enterprise overall with advancing our DEI mission.
You know, we'll dive into some more DEI and some more leadership stuff, but I want to go back because you said New York. So, So where in New York? What was that? What was that like?
So I was born in a really special place called Auburn, New York. Not a lot of people know where Auburn is, right? But it's actually a really exciting, great place. It's a city of 30,000 that is between Syracuse, New York, and Rochester in upstate New York. Yep. So when I tell people I'm from New York, they automatically say New York City, right? I'm like, no, it's upstate New York. But it is the home and the home and the resting place of Harriet Tubman. So that's yes, and she is not a direct relative of mine, but through marriage, we have a relationship to her. Amazing. So it was, a part of our family growing up, that entity where we would go to the Harriet Tubman home, which is now a historic landmark, and we would have our family reunions and family picnics and things of this nature. And for us, it was just like this was Aunt Harriet's house. It wasn't the big deal, but it also now shows me how much our history, Black history, was not well known about, because we knew about her from a family, but it wasn't until
It wasn't like she's the GOAT, and everything.
she is. Now we have lots of, understanding about her. She's making it to the history books and also movies and so much. And now finally, and it wasn't until the late, actually until the early 2000s, that her home became a historic landmark. So that was really a special place. And I would say that my parents growing up there, they really wanted to make sure that my sister and I had an education. And so they worked really hard at big companies to make sure that we would have all kinds of support to do that. So I was born in Auburn. That's where my family's from. We moved from Auburn to the big city of Syracuse, New York.
Go Orange.
Go Orange, because I loved, I was a basketball player in high school, and that was probably where my competitive drive and just wanting to, always be at my best came from. And I loved the Orange.
What year did you graduate high school?
I graduated, now you're going to date me.
Yep,
So 1987 is when I graduated from high school.
And the reason why I asked that question is because growing up, so I was a hooper growing up. And so when I was in sixth grade, so this is, I graduated in 95, so I don't even remember what year that makes it, but I decided to go to Syracuse basketball camp.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm from Indiana.
Yeah.
Syracuse
so did
basketball
you meet Jim
camp.
Boeheim?
So I met Jim Boeheim,
Yeah, all right.
Derek Coleman, Sherman Douglas.
I knew Derek Coleman.
Those were my guys, and that's why I loved that. Matter of fact, my sixth grade AAU team, I wore number 20 for Sherman Douglas. He was the point guard at the time.
I knew all about
he was a guy. So I went to Syracuse
we could talk
basketball.
About this all day.
And this is so funny. I was telling this story the other day because the funny thing about it was when I did this was like where you could just, in the flight era, right, where you could just go right up to the gate. Your parents could take you right up to the gate. But you would fly. There was no cell phones. So then there was somebody that just was supposed to pick you up at the airport. And then you go to a week at camp. There's no cell phones. You get a call home, collect every once in a while. Yeah. Say, Mom, I'm still here. I'm hooping. I'm alive. Right. And then you get on a plane. You just come home, right?
And you played at the Dome.
I played in the Dome. I made the All-Star team, so we played in the Dome. It was just it was so much fun, just taking me back there. So when you said Syracuse, I was like, okay.
That's my roots, and it's a great place. I'll tell you. Basketball there is just so exciting, and there's just such a legacy there, and Jim Boeheim is a part of that as well.
It's still there. That's what it was. I saw him on TV the other day coaching. I'm like, that dude was coaching when I was in sixth grade at basketball camp. Right now, and that's been a few years.
Quite honestly, and I'm a little bit older than you because I had the '87 graduation. Will tell you, I don't remember any other coach other than Jim Boeheim, and he's still there. So it's pretty amazing.
So you moved to Syracuse, and so that's where you grew up, high school, and so how did you get away from going to Syracuse versus Michigan State?
Can I tell you, it's the oddest story because really Michigan State was the last school on my list. They were offering some scholarship money. I was also wanting to play basketball, and I really wanted to play at Syracuse. That was like the dream. Yeah. And so as I moved forward, the likelihood of me I played well, but not good enough. The reality, it was a good, important experience though in that, because learning about when your athletic career is going to pivot and change, that was really a lot of great learning there. When was I going to put the shoes up and do something else? And I wanted to study chemical engineering, which doing that in sports, and especially Division I, is not necessarily for everybody. Yeah. And it definitely wasn't going to be in the cards for me. But back to the story. Syracuse was a great school on the list. Cornell was a great school on the list. And those were the places that I thought I was going to end up. And then I visited Michigan State. And I will tell you, for me, going to Michigan State was just like, it was the last school on my list. But my visit made everything. I felt at home. I felt like I belonged there. And what part of the belonging, there's such a strong Detroit influence to Michigan State. So when I arrived, what I saw were other Black people like me studying engineering at the College of Engineering, welcoming me in, telling me about all the resources that I would have and how I could be successful. And I will tell you, for me, it wasn't like I was going to an HBCU, but it was probably the closest thing at a predominant majority institution that I experienced to that point. And so as I was one of 3 Black people in my high school, going to that environment and seeing all of these Black up and coming college students that wanted to do what I wanted to do was a draw.
Well, I know in your role now, belonging is obviously a very important end goal that many of us have as we're building companies and cultures and groups and organizations and teams. And it's interesting just to hear you say like that was what clicked. Yeah. Like you went to a spot and there was a sense of belonging, and then it was like this is different.
This was different. I felt like I could be myself. I felt like I could raise my hand and ask those questions. I felt like I could access what I needed to. And I went there and I was very successful. I was very happy to be at Michigan State. I did walk on to be a Lady Spartan. Yes, I did. Yeah. Yes, I did. And I sat a lot. and then the chemical engineering side of things was like ramping up. So I decided after that first year, why don't I put those high tops up?
Yeah, I'm gonna need to focus on something that's gonna help me, and I can't imagine the balance of those 2 things.
Yeah.
So let's talk about family. So tell us about your family.
Okay. So interesting thing, and I'll stick with Michigan State, and then we'll transition into family. Michigan State was wonderful from an education standpoint, also just a great experience for me to grow and develop. But I also met my husband there. Ah. So my husband is also a Spartan. And we were both in the chemical engineering program. We met in thermodynamics class. So
I don't even know what that is. That's how sophisticated that is, right?
It was great to meet him there, and I'll tell you, there were a few of us of Black people in the engineering program, but within this class, it was just he and I. And we got to know one another. Automatic bond. And he had some game. So it was raining during one of our classes, and he showed up with an umbrella and walked me to my next class. So I was like, this is an interesting guy. Like, not everybody does that, right? So got to know him, and we met, and 6 years later after we graduated, we got married.
So hold on, for our young professionals out here, they don't miss that game right there. That umbrella was a thing,
It was a thing. It was pretty smart too. Right. So, and there was a lot of other great things about him. But so met him there, we got married, and he came to Lilly first. So he came to Indianapolis first. And I was trying to woo him to Chicago because I was working for a small chemical company right out of school. And Chicago's a big city. Right. I came from smaller cities, and so he was supposed to come there. But he decided that he wanted to be here and really believed in the mission of the company. And long story short, we ended up finding our way here for Indianapolis, our home. We have 2 boys that we have raised here in Indianapolis, and it has become home for us. It's become home.
I think that when people that aren't from Indy or Indiana end up here, like some of us that are from Indy are like, oh, why did you come here, right? And we're all talking about the great elements of Indianapolis and the donut counties and Indiana as a whole. Yes. But it's interesting when people come, and you didn't just come, but you stayed because you've been here for like 20 plus years now.
Yes, I have. We've stayed, and what has helped us to stay, I mean, there's a big piece of, one, we have found family here. Even though his family's from Detroit, my family from upstate New York, and we travel to see our family. But we found family here. The people in the Midwest are friendly and welcoming. And so even though we were both transplants, we found our people here. Lilly has been great for us, and both of our careers have thrived there, and that's been good. And I will talk about 2 other things. Both, we found great ways for our boys to be able to realize their potential there. So we do have 2 boys. My oldest, he has done well and went to the Orchard School and Cathedral and played sports and all kinds of great fun things. My youngest son he's on the autistic spectrum. And we had to really pour into him a little bit more and differently than we did our older son. It was quite the journey. And the kind of resourcing and support that we had here in Indiana, what we believed as we would go to national conferences to learn how to best support our son, what we learned through that was that there were just some unique resources and access and great organizations to be able to get the resources we needed to help our son here in Indiana. And so that kept us. We were able to thrive career-wise and also thrive as a family.
Well, I think that's one of the interesting things for me is that people are always trying to figure out what's work-life balance.
Oh yeah.
Right. When you have kids, I have 3 kids myself, and so you're trying to figure this. My wife is a professional, and so you're like that dynamic of trying to be great for your kids professionally, but build a home culture that is sustainable and they thrive in. What's that balance been like? Because
with us both working outside of the home, it's been a journey. So it's really been a recipe of a few things. It's one, both my husband and I had to be on the same page as to what's going to be our pace from a work standpoint. Because you can choose that you want to do a lot to go really far fast, or do you need to have a pace that allows for a certain type of lifestyle that you want to have? You got to be clear about what that is for your family. And we were very clear about how we wanted to be involved with our family. And we also knew we couldn't do it alone. And so we had the benefit of some great parents. His parents being from Detroit, and even my parents from New York would come and support us at times. When I had a role where I was a global leader and had to travel at times a week at a time and be in Europe or even in Japan. And my parents would come and just stay with our children. And it was like my children look forward to me leaving, because when grandparents came, it was like a whole nother thing,
Yeah.
Okay, so we had support there. And then, I learned to delegate, both of us. The things that were not so important, like we wanted to be at our kids' games, we wanted to be at their activities. We needed to support our youngest through his therapy, which meant that household chores and things of this nature, we outsourced. So we made sure that we would bring help to the household to do that.
I think that's great to just, sometimes people are trying to figure out, is that okay, not okay, but when you're all hands on trying to figure it out, like everything's a possibility. I want to ask this question because I think it's relevant, not only to our podcast, but where we are in America. So you're a Black female executive at a super high level. How is that balance of going, I have this family that I'm trying to be balanced, but I'm trailblazing, and not that you looked at it as trailblazing, but like there's some trailblazing and some, if I mess this up, like this is going to mess it up for some other people too.
That's right.
I got to work a little bit harder, maybe do a little bit more, be on top of my game. Like, what's that like?
Here's the key. It can feel like pressure sometimes, right? That balance all of that. I often make sure that I center myself. You give yourself your best, because if you get too scared about all of that, what will end up happening, you'll be too careful, and you won't take the reasoned risk. You won't be bold. You won't be courageous, and it takes all of that in order to trailblaze. I just, that word probably doesn't sit as well with me, but just do the work that's important to you. So I'm clear about my choices. I'm clear about the work that I do, and do that with excellence. And I've always taken roles that I knew were going to be a match of the skills that I have, so that I could be excellent at it, and also leverage a lot of the support of mentors and colleagues to be able to do that work well. So it is about pursuing excellence, and it is about excellence at work and excellence at home. And it really is about making sure you have a good group and a good circle and network around you.
A lot of the Black females that have sit in this chair have talked about some of the challenge of showing up their authentic self. And whether it was code words of how you dress, or how your hair should be, or how you should speak, or what your position was in a meeting. So talk about your leadership journey of 20 years and doing this, like, to figure that piece of it out.
It's been a journey, and it took me a while to figure it out. I mean, I used to, the permed hair, always straight hair, and, don't wear too many loud colors, even though I love them. Not it. So there's definitely been a journey of me being bit more careful, reserved, not fully being myself. Because, I would say if a colleague saw me on the weekend, they might be surprised at what they saw. Okay,
Because I, like, is that Kelly?
yeah, because I like to be a little stylish at times, and bring in the bright colors, and then do that whole switch up when you get to work. And I will say, probably about 15 years ago, I just let that go. It was a conscious decision. My natural hair now, I'm like, this is just what it is. And I just had a board presentation, and I wear my natural hair. I mean, and dress the way that I think is going to be professional, but also embodies Kelly's authentic self. I can do all of that and be excellent. In fact, what I have found is the more that I tap into who Kelly really is and not hiding that, even the stories about having to raise a child with special needs, I talk about that very openly. I talk about the balance of being a first-generation college student. I didn't always share some of those things. But the resilience of having to figure some things out for the first time in my family, the problem solving that we had to have because there weren't things that have happened in my family that would help me be successful, that I had to learn, all of that is what actually allows me to be excellent. So I've checked my code switch.
Wow,
okay,
I like that verbiage. I checked my code switch.
I check my code switch, and I show up every day with excellence, but as Kelly.
Kelly, has there been a spot where you walked into a room or walked out of a room and thought, I don't know if I even belong here? Like, am I, can I really be at this table? Are they really listening to me? Do they really care? Am I a token? Am I, have you had that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it happens. And it happens, it's happened in multiple dimensions, right? Like, am I supposed to be here? Where you have that imposter syndrome, right? And that's where I would say I consciously just got to a point, and it was through the help of mentors, also really doing a lot more reading and good development programs. And I had an executive coach too, which was very helpful for me to unpack. It's like, what makes you great is that you are a Black female, and just know you are supposed to be there, because what you uniquely bring in terms of your experiences allows you to be just at your best, and it's what people need. So I just believe that I have something to offer and that is needed, so I'm not going to hide that anymore.
When you're talking to young professionals that are looking at where you are, like, I hope to one day be there, what do you try to get them to understand about the journey?
I think the first thing is, one, do believe in yourself. Don't try to run after somebody else's dream. Believe in yourself. Believe in the things that are of interest to you, and then the things that match what you're good at. So know those things. So do that self-introspection, and also build yourself up. Don't listen to those negative messages that could get into your head. So it's about believing in yourself, the confidence, and also knowing what you're great at, and pursuing that, even if that doesn't seem like the best thing to be pursuing. Go after it, and go after that hard, and make good relationships with people that can help you, because none of us get anywhere without the support of others. It always takes a village.
So that just figuring out, where's my help coming from? Who can I tap into? What can I learn? So what do you do now to really stay in that professional development, to stay in that growth mindset, to stay in a spot where, like, now people are looking to have answers about stuff, especially in this conversation around DEI, like they're gonna look at you like you're supposed to have all the answers, right? How do you stay, right? You're like, hey, rule number one, I do not have all the answers, okay? But how are you staying ahead of the curve?
Oh my goodness, I'm forever reading. I mean, reading, podcasts, love podcasts, okay?
Yeah.
So and also just, you gotta stay current, because nothing stays the same. Even the landscape of DEI of diversity, equity, inclusion, is evolved. So where we were around DEI 5 years ago is different than where it is now, right? So when I think about all of these social issues that are going on. It's very controversial times that we have now, very divisive politically. That affects the workplace. And so those are things that we have to make sure that we account for and really have to understand. So if you only stayed with what you knew about DEI 5 years ago, you may not understand what's appropriate language today. How do you better use pronouns to respect our LGBTQ plus or community? How do we need to make sure that persons with disabilities, that they're a part of when we think of diversity, that is a huge part of that. And I would say that 5 years ago, this probably wasn't the mainstream of what DEI is about. It's evolved. And the landscape has evolved because our society has grown and evolved, and population is changing too.
How does that, as a global leader, and you've traveled the world literally,
Yes.
in leadership positions and having meetings and having conversation, how does the world see this differently than maybe we see it here?
Yeah, it plays out tremendously different. So the context, when you think about historically excluded groups like Black people as well as Latinx people, there is a reality to what that's meant in terms of systemic bias, systemic racism, and things of this nature, that part of DEI is very U.S. oriented. When you start to go to places like Japan, that's not the diversity challenge there. It's more around age. It's around other factors. And so that's just a good example there. It's different in terms of gender is more predominant of a diversity factor in places in Europe. So it plays out differently. So you have to account for that when you're doing your DEI work, because it looks differently. But it's what makes it so fascinating for me, because it's like, how do you then make sure that you have a relevant message, that you speak a common language around it?
All right, I got to put you on the hot seat here.
Okay, I'm in the hot seat
so
now.
now you are officially in the hot seat. So I got a list of questions here that I'm going to throw out to you. One word answer or one phrase answer.
Oh.
Rapid fire. Here we go.
Okay.
Ready? Favorite place to vacation?
Cancun.
Coolest city you've been to?
Chicago.
Yeah.
I love Chicago, but it's the coolest.
Your favorite homemade meal?
Oh, that's a hard one. There's a lot. Oh, okay, enchiladas.
A restaurant you love to go to?
Late Harvest Kitchen.
Okay. A brand that you love?
Oh, I'm a big Nike person.
Yay. Favorite sports team?
I'm a big Colts fan.
Mm-hmm. And favorite college?
Michigan State University. You didn't even have to ask that one, Travis.
Last TV show that you've binged watched?
Oh, The Last of Us.
Okay. Must watch movie?
Must watch movie. I'm still with The Color Purple. There's so much learning around that movie, even today. And it just really speaks to the power of resilience and overcoming. It's such a powerful message. So that's a deep one for me.
That is. Great book that you recommend?
The Year of Yes, Shonda Rhimes. Talk about a breakthrough. There's so much packed into that, and Shonda Rhimes she's so interesting. So she's
I know Shonda.
Yes.
Shondaland, let's go.
Shondaland. And just amazing. This whole Year of Yes, where she gave herself permission because she was more introverted and wanted to actually focus on work. And she was a bit of hiding, covering, and didn't feel like she had self-permission to do all the things that life has to offer. Wow. So she gave herself a year of yes. And what she saw in that, just stepping out, what the courage that took, the finding out things that she liked and didn't like, and how that was important for her as well, and that she lived in the fullness of all that life had to offer. It's just, to me, it's a delightful book. She's an amazing writer.
Yeah.
So I'm a big Shonda Rhimes fan.
I am as well. Favorite type of music?
Oh, I'm a big old school R&B.
So what would be your hype song walking onto the stage?
Oh, you know what? It's the new one. So it's Beyonce's "Break My Soul." I'm telling you, there's a lot packed in there.
Right.
You know, it's a great beat, but more than that, just what she's talking about. She was really relevant about all the challenges and that we're going through in society, and but yet people being able to stay strong in who they are, and don't let your soul be broken.
So the last question is this. So there's a time for all of us that's going to have a number, a dash, and a number on a tombstone. And there's going to be a bunch of people standing around talking about Kelly.
Yep.
What do you hope that they say about you?
She made a difference for people. She made a difference. That has been a big part of it. If you can see the things that I've done, and also what I like to do, and we didn't touch on this too much, but even in the world of autism today, I whenever I hear someone is going through that journey, because that journey was a hard one where it's got a great, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow at this time now, because my son has done really, really well because we've been able to find the right things for him. I love to mentor. I love to share that story. I love to help people know that there's hope. So I want to be able to make a difference for people and with people.
Well, I'm super excited that I've met you, got to spend some time with you, and seeing some of the impact that you're making. And I know that you're doing big things, and so, well, thanks for coming to the show. It's time for you to give it to us.
Okay. And what did I have to say again?
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Very fun.